Please let our viewers meet you.
I'm Adekunle Salami. I am a deputy editor in New Telegraph newspaper. I'm also the group sports editor of the organization.
So how do you react to the resignation of Nigeria's Super Eagles chief coach, Sunday Oliseh?
Yes, for keen followers of football, his resignation didn't come to all of us by surprise. He resigned at the point we all felt it, that he is feeling frustrated, he is feeling insecure, he's not feeling capable of taking us along any longer. He was up to playing against Egypt, so to say. I'm not sure he was ready. He was asked to submit a list of players that will play for a match that is coming up in about 3 weeks' time. He did not submit that list until his resignation. So it didn't come to any of us by surprise. Even keen followers of football, the average Nigerian on the street, know that Oliseh is likely to resign, especially after his rant on YouTube, the video rant. It was clear that it's either he wanted a sack by the NFF, or he was contemplating resignation. So it's just one of those things in the game.
Well, he said he was not given support by the NFF.
Let's take it from the beginning. Oliseh was a player in the national team. He was the captain of the national team. He knew all the tricks in Nigerian football. He knew everything. So for you to come and work in an environment like this, you should also be ready for whatever will come your way. So talking about support, the NFF did everything they should do. In fact, for me, he was actually over-pampered, because if you look at the kind of support they gave CSR, it was not even up to a quarter of what was given to Oliseh. Amuneke is the same thing. And these two people, Amuneke went out to win a World Cup for under-17. CSR went out to win under-23 Nations Cup for Nigeria. But Oliseh was just complaining. He was just abusing people, insulting people, fighting his players, fighting ex-players, fighting Nigerians, fighting himself, including his backroom staff. So it's unfortunate, because his attitude played him out.
Now, we understand that he collected his salaries before he resigned. How
Correct.
True is that?
Correct. He was paid 3 months up front. At the point he was paid 3 months up front, some coaches were being owed in Nigeria. Shortly after his engagement, he got 3 months ahead, and nobody raised an eyebrow. He felt good about it. So when he was being owed, he started complaining. It's one of those things. I am not saying it is right for him to be owed, but he was paid. He got his alert on Wednesday, I can confirm, because I learned the president is making efforts to ensure all those who are being paid in the sports scene are giving their money in the nearest possible time. And I learned that of Oliseh was given a priority. He has been paid. I can confirm.
So would you agree then with people who say the problem was caused by Amaju Pinnick, who called him the Pep Guardiola of Nigeria?
You see, that has nothing to do with the performance. Whatever you call me is not adding or removing anything from what I can do. You cannot give what you do not have. Oliseh has knowledge about football, but he is lacking human relation, is lacking in man management. So if you cannot manage men, so how do you control about 35 people who are adults? How do you control about 23 people who will be your final squad? You will have about 40, 30 in camp. You will eliminate some, then you will have a minimum number of, say, 23, 22 as your finalist. So he couldn't manage that. That's his problem. He has knowledge about football, but he could not manage men. Imagine in our history, we have not had the issue of players quitting the national team like that. Even when Kanu was so old, people were saying, this guy, he was still playing 15 minutes for us and still giving us what he could give at a point. But in this case, Emenike is still playing. He scored 2 goals only last weekend. He left the camp in annoyance. Not because of you and I, not because of Buhari, not because of anybody, not because of Pinnick, but because of Oliseh. In Yama, the same thing. He's still #1 choice in his team. He left because of Oliseh. So what are we talking about?
Yeah, but Oliseh said on a program some time ago that he'll be able to manage crisis, because he criticized some other coaches, former coaches of the Super Eagles, for being unable to handle crisis?
It is easier said, you know. He was the skipper of the national team. As a skipper, we also knew what was happening then. I was reporting actively when he was skipper, and I knew what this guy did, even as a skipper. In Mali in 2002, there were issues after Nigeria crashed out in the semi-final, I think, yes. And he was abusing everybody. He abused the minister, abused the then NFF chairman, abused the director general of sports. You know, it's unfortunate, and he still carried that into the national team as a coach. When he came in, the worry of Nigerians was his temperament, and it has played out. For somebody to come on air one day and say those who are criticizing him and he's saying, I've never heard that before. People who are criticizing him and say his former colleagues are not knowledgeable, they should not talk to him because they were warming the bench when he was playing. That's absurd. You don't do that. What we want you to do is to go to the field, coach the guys, get results for Nigeria. Not to be ranting, abusing this and that. What we want is a win and draw in the 2 games against Egypt, or win-win in the back-to-back games against Egypt. The long and short of this story is that Oliseh is not sure he will be able to deliver that result, even after all the noise. The issue of calling Guardiola is just one of those things by Pinnick, because somehow when Oliseh was coming in, he felt because of his knowledge of the game, his punditry and all that, he will deliver the same way he was talking. It doesn't work that way. If you are a former player, no matter your knowledge of the game, it doesn't mean it will translate into what you will do on the pitch as a coach or even as a player.
Okay, final words. Set the way forward for us.
Yeah, the way forward for Nigeria as we speak is simple. I must tell you this. Immediately after the video rant, the NFF were already looking at their options. And part of the options I will say now, for me, I think CSI should step up to be our national coach. It is simple as that, because CSI is having a bunch of players who are under 23. Players who are under 23 are as good as being our national team players anyway. Remember those who played in Atlanta and won the gold for us that time. All those who played in that Atlanta team were already established players who just from there graduated into the Super Eagles. So what are we talking about? Then let me also tell you that in a lot of countries, they have the same coach handling their under 23 and the national team. So why can't we do that? CSI has between now and August for this under 23 program. Olympic Games is in August. It's just about 2-3 weeks in August. There is no match for him to play between now and then. So he can cope with the two, you know. And we also know that we are working like we have somebody who is gathering the two teams. Let me give you an example. When Oliseh was coaching during after CSI's match, Nations Cup, he didn't want to take any player from under the 3 team. He was saying they are CSI boys, people that are Nigerians, calling them CSI boys. How can you comprehend that? You know, calling them CSI boys. But for now, CSI knows he's in charge of both under 23 and the national team. If the NFF is thinking the same way I'm thinking anyway, they can ask Salisu, who is assisting Oliseh, to also assist him. Then maybe, just maybe, Amodu could play a further role and all, just to do something between now and the next 2-3 months when we have crucial games. Because we have crucial games against City, we also have some games for World Cup qualifier. We cannot afford to lose all of this.
One final word. Do you think the NFF should accept Oliseh's resignation on Twitter, since he wasn't appointed on Twitter?
I made calls. I called Abuja earlier today, and a source told me he sent an email late Thursday to the NFF. The problem is the Secretary General and the President of the Nigeria Football Federation both are in Zurich now. You know, FIFA election is holding today, so they are both in Switzerland for that election. So there might be a case of say, okay, they were not in Nigeria, and that is why we didn't know. But he sent it late Thursday, and then at about 1 a.m. or so, he went on Twitter to release the statement by himself.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Adekunle Salami is the Deputy Editor and Group Sports Editor of New Telegraph newspapers. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.